Right, and we're cutting across now to Male, to the Maldives itself, where Prime Minister Modi is in conversation with the Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohammed Soli. Remember, Prime Minister Modi was in attendance for President Soli's inauguration last year. Now, these are visuals from a short while ago when he was welcomed to Republic Square by the Maldivian President himself. Prime Minister Modi arrived in the island nation a short while ago. He was received at the airport by the Foreign Minister of the Maldives, who confirmed that Prime Minister Modi is going to be receiving the highest honor that the Maldives accords to foreign dignitaries. It's called the Order of Nishan-e-Zuddin. Prime Minister Modi is also expected to address the Majlis, or the Maldivian Parliament, at about 7:15 p.m. local Indian Standard Time. I beg your pardon. These visuals from the cultural reception that he received a short while ago. Now, he is currently in a bilateral with the Maldivian president. There are a number of MOUs that are expected to be signed during this short two-day visit by Prime Minister Modi to the Maldives. Remember, it's significant to note over here the fact that this is the first foreign visit that the Prime Minister has undertaken in his new stint as India's Prime Minister in his second term. It is significant indeed that he has chosen to visit the Maldives as part of his first visit abroad as the new Prime Minister. This is, of course, in accordance with India's Act East and Neighbourhood First policies. Prime Minister Modi, in fact, tweeted the very same fact before he took off from Kerala earlier today for the Maldives. Now, there are a number of agenda points on the Prime Minister's visit. This is his first state visit, remember, to the island country. The last time he attended, or rather was in the country, was for the swearing in of President Soli. That was in November last year. India is also planning a ferry service which is going to operate between Kochi and the Maldives. And of course, there has been an expression on India's part to boost cooperation with the Maldives. There was a bit of a downturn in ties between the two countries during the last administration in the island country. That was, of course, under President Abdullah Yameen. Maldives was seen to be pitching towards China in a very strong way. India, of course, has maintained that Maldives is an important strategic partner in India's foreign policy, and of course its decision to work with the neighbourhood first. Now, this is going to be a two-day visit. The focus is to strengthen ties with the Soli government. This is the first visit abroad after Prime Minister Modi took charge for a second term. It's also 8 years after an Indian Prime Minister is on a state visit to the Maldives. The last one was undertaken by Prime Minister Modi's predecessor, that is Manmohan Singh, back in 2011. Now, the Indian Prime Minister arrived in Male today at around 3:30 in the afternoon. It was followed by, of course, a bilateral that is currently underway with the Maldivian President Soli. 7:15 this evening, the Prime Minister of India will address the Maldivian Parliament, or the Majlis. Now, just before he left for the Maldives, Prime Minister Modi said that his visit to Maldives is not only going to strengthen cordial ties with its maritime neighbour, but is also clearly in line with India's neighbourhood first policy. For strengthening its defence partnership, both Prime Minister Modi and President Soli will jointly inaugurate two defence-related projects, that is, the coastal surveillance radar system, which will help Male preserve its sovereignty, which is an extremely important factor given the sort of people who are interested in the area, in the region specifically. There are also a number of MOUs that are going to be signed, including the training of civil servants, customs and white shipping. The Maldives is also keen on having its own cricket team and a cricket stadium, for which it has asked India for assistance. India has already given away cricket kits and is expected to coach Maldivian players. India has already, in fact, sent a team of BCCI members across to the Maldives. The Prime Minister is going to end his visit to the island nation tomorrow, after which he's going to set off for a short but packed visit to Sri Lanka. Right, let me go across to my colleague Siddhant Sibbal, WION's principal diplomatic correspondent, continues to be with us on the broadcast. Siddhant, the bilateral is underway with the Maldivian president. We've spoken, of course, about people-to-people contact, and of course about cricket and what sort of role it's expected to play between the two countries. But when it comes to defence and security, there are MOUs that are expected to be signed. Give us, a few more details. Flesh that aspect of the relationship out for us a little better.
Well, Aisha, defence will be a key component of the talks and the entire gamut of relationship which the India and the Maldives are trying to now forge. Two important projects will be inaugurated jointly by the Indian Prime Minister and by the President of Maldives. One, of course, is the surveillance radar that will, as the Foreign Secretary of India said, that it will help Maldives make sure that its exclusive economic zone is not infringed upon by other ships or ships that can be violative or can be trespassing the territory of Maldives. Another will be a center that will train the Maldives National Defence Forces, which is key. These two projects, one of the key highlight of the entire visit, shows that how India is strengthening Maldives Defence Forces, which is key to the security of the Indian Ocean region. And this is not just Maldives. India has been engaging with all these Indian Ocean island countries, whether it's Seychelles. We know that India had planned defence developments there as well. Last year when the Seychelles leadership arrived here, that was one of the key talking points with the other countries as well. When China is also planning and engaging with these countries. Remember, Maldives still just the start of this decade didn't had any formal diplomatic relationship with China. It is only under Nasheed, who was the leader back then. He allowed China to open its mission there, and since then we saw how China in a sense had an upper hand under the Yamin administration, who clearly junked India's India policy, India first policy, and was focusing more openly and in a sense quoting openly with China. He passed the FTA with China, whose details are still not known, in the parliament in matter of just 10 minutes. So that was the influence of Beijing in Maldives, which is the backyard of India.
Absolutely. And when we talk about, defense and security, Siddhant, the fact that India is also focused on ensuring the safety of the neighborhood, counter-terrorism, and, of course, keeping the region free of terrorist activity has been one of the key focus points for India at a number of multilateral fora. We've seen, of course, what happened in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday, the impact of ISIS-related terrorism making its presence felt in the most gruesome manner in India's very own neighborhood. In fact, for a while there was also mention of the fact that some of the terrorists who perpetrated that attack had spent some time in the Maldives. Do you think that the focus on counter-terrorism and, of course, keeping the region free from terrorist activities is also going to find a key place in the conversation between India and the Maldives?
Well, it will be, in fact, top priority when, in fact, the talks have begun with the Maldivian counterpart. That will be the key priority. And, of course, with the Sri Lankans as well. Sri Lanka, short-packed visit, but focus on terror and, of course, counter-terrorism. We spoke with the Sri Lankan envoy here in Delhi, and he extensively talked about terrorism, how this cannot be viewed isolatedly by both the Sri Lankan government and, of course, the Indian government. Biggest worry will be Islamic State in the aftermath of the Easter Sunday attacks, the worst terror attacks which has been perpetrated by Islamic State outside its zone of influence, and that is something that will be under discussion with both the leadership of Sri Lanka and Maldives, because we know that the spread of Islamic State is largely happening from these countries, and of course south of India is being impacted by that, because security in that region is impacted because of the developments in these regions. And if you compare relatively, Maldives has contributed to the maximum number of people joining Islamic State in the region as compared to its population. That is a worrisome factor for New Delhi. New Delhi already had warned Sri Lanka before the terror attack that this can happen, but we know the infighting between the government led the entire incident. In a sense, there was no action taken by the Sri Lankan government. So by and large, terrorism will be the top concern for New Delhi, for Maldives and for Sri Lanka as well.